I'm working on a huge blanket, so it involves a whole bunch of knit and purl stitches. And it's on the dragon loom, the adjustable dragon, which is the largest of the Kiss looms, and it's adjusted out for very big stitches. So it occurred to me that this would be a great opportunity to do some really detailed knitting and purling. You can see it well on this loom, and instead of just going over the basics, I'm going to cover some things that various new knitters have asked me. Here is the basic purl stitch. Push the tool down from above the existing stitch, wrap the new yarn beneath the old stitch, twist the tool in a way that allows you to make a loop, old loop lifted off, new loop placed on, and tighten up a little bit. Now there's a little more to it than that described. People say, oops, mine are all slipping off. You can place a finger here and get some control so it doesn't slip off till you're good and ready. Rotate the point, pull through the loop, lift, and the finger is now in a position, I want this loop off, I don't want these two to pop off, but with a finger right there, there's some prevention, and I can tighten up. Now this stitch is to be a knit stitch. For that we wrap above the existing loop, pull it just snug enough not to be slippy slidey, and lift the new loop over the old. Let me purl this stitch for a purling review. Lift, replace, and tell you a little bit more about the knit stitch here. Wrap, but I'm pushing some pressure down with the two fingers that are behind the peg. That means that any tendency for this to pop off can't happen because there's just not enough room. It doesn't take a lot of pressure. It's a lot to remember when you're just starting out, but if you practice very slowly as I'm doing, let me show you something else. If this motion doesn't work for you, there is no shame in pinching the stitch between one finger and the other and lifting it and replacing it. That's fine. This should be a knit. Wrap snugly enough there's not a lot of slack. This is too much slack, but you don't want to be bending the loom either. So a nice median tension, and what I mean by that is something you just have to learn by experience. Lower loop up and over, and the stitch could not slip off even if it wanted to because of my fingertip. This is a Kiss loom tool, not the one that comes with your loom. This is a special order one. Well, it's not special order, it's on the website, but it's not included with the loom, and it has changeable tips. Unscrewing this allows you to free this tip and alternate it. In fact, I bought two of them so I could use this other tip. This is a purling hook, and we're ready to do a purl, so let me show you how it's done with that hook. It's less twisting of your wrist, which is good for some people, but it's technically a little different. You can insert the tool here and pull up a loop. So I'm doing the same thing with my other finger, controlling the jumping around. Let me just wrap this stitch to knit later and do another stitch showing you can also insert from here, especially on the larger gauge looms like this one, if that's an easier access point for you. This makes pulling up the loop a little bit easier, this kind of tool, but you do have to watch out for something, and that is you don't want to get your hook involved with previous stitches or other strands of yarn. So it's a different controlled movement. And see, on the way up here, if I'm not pulling back a little, I could hook this piece. No good. Keep it free. Up, control that popping off business with a spare finger down. Now, are these the only ways to do it? Of course not. Humans are very versatile, and our hands are all different, and our sensibilities are different. So if you're doing it differently and succeeding, you need not change. This movie is to assist people who are having trouble. One of the things we sometimes do is do all the purls in a row, having just wrapped the knits to come back to, as I did here. When I do that, it still may be helpful to put a controlling finger in position. Then my old loop doesn't like to jump off. Now this particular pattern, I'm knitting seed stitch, which looks like this, and it means that if I knitted this last row, I will purl it this row. Here's a homemade purling hook. I'm showing you this one because it has more of a bend in it. Some people have a much easier time purling if they do put that much of a bend into their hooks. It's pretty easy to do on the white handled hooks that come with your loom set, and it's not difficult to make yourself one. It would not be easy, nor would I recommend altering the thick brass purling hook I was using a minute ago to have that much of a bend. I wouldn't want to damage a tool of that value. Jack made me this one. And although this is very ugly wire, it's actually very strong. It's titanium wire from an old pair of eyeglass frames. And in this trip, you will see, because moving right to left, I have a pretty easy time with the lifting up and putting on like that. My time isn't as easy doing it moving left to right. So for all of these stitches, I just did use my fingertips. Let's do some more knit stitches with an alternate tool. This is a commonly available one, and it works just the same. The reason I'm bringing it up to you at all is that people have different preferences for tool shape. One, let me put them both on my hand. See, they're quite different. One may work a lot better for you than the other. I actually have a video on making your own tool. Do you see what my left thumb is doing? It's helping too. It's another thing you can do. Press in on the top loop with the spare thumb as you lift over. That's pretty effective too. So you could look for my video on a do-it-yourself loom tool from a pen and a nail, and you can make your own hook exactly the shape that works for you. The trick there, though, is to try out a few commercially available ones first so that you get an idea of what is your favorite. Here's another alternative. This is called the Knit and Purl tool, and it's sold on the website of that name. We still wrap below for a purl and insert it towards us so that the long hook is facing us and the short, more turned up hook, let me see if you can see it better there, is facing the yarn, and pull up a loop of yarn that way. Many people love this because you need not change tools nor twist the wrist to get the purling done. In fact, this particular tool is really meant for finer gauge work. I don't have a super bulky version on hand to show you, but the company does make a bulkier tool, which if you're using the Dragon and you decide this is what you want, I think you want the bulkier one. But it's interesting for you to see that I can make it work anyway. Now, here's something we sometimes do when knitting several stitches in a row, is wrap all of them. And did you see my fingers moving along, encouraging the wraps to stay on there? Now, the lower of the two hooks, the longer one with less bend, is the knitting hook. And I'm going to knit each of these over with it. These stitches were cabled last row. You can see the cross where they were. So they'll be a little bit tight. And even so, there's really no problem grabbing the lower loop. But in every case, you'll see I'm encouraging the wraps to stay in place with the placement of my other hand, the one not holding the hook. Most of us who are right-handed use the tool in our right hand and do other things with the left hand. Left-handers normally do it like this. I can actually learn to do it both ways, just not gracefully enough to dare do it on camera. And so can you. But even the hand that's not in work, it needs to be doing something. Don't let it just lounge around. Make it be useful, because it will make your knitting go so much better. Now, your choice of knitting tools is highly personal and can affect your success. But honestly, you could knit with a bent paper clip if you attended to the other matters. And the main matters are controlling the tension of your wrap and making sure that you do something to keep those stitches coming up only when you want them to, such as this, or this, or that, where my thumb got into the act. Perfectly okay to do it any old way. It's in fact kind of hard to lift this up and over with no help in control. I can do it now, and you'll be able to do it, but it's much easier if you let your fingertips help you. They're helping me now as I wrap, and they're helping me now to control the loops so they pop off exactly when I want them to, if at all, and not before. Hope that helps you.